morning from Calgary, Alberta. I am with the Phillips 66 Cowboy that is currently at a business and has been for many years. This guy was looking great probably 10-15 years ago. He's a bit faded, but it's very, very cool to see a Cowboy with the original holster. Now this one is broken and the actual grip has broken off, but the holster is still there. There's very, very few of these giants that still have them. I've got one in my personal collection, and then I think there's this guy and one other that's coming to my mind right now. No, two others that still have the 6-shooter. So very rare find here in Calgary. Today's video though isn't really about this guy. I want to head down south a bit and try to find international fiberglass 14-foot bunion that stood with the Uniroyal girl in Lethbridge back in the 60s. We know the Uniroyal girl is in Tabor today, so she survived, but the 14-foot what's often known as a Luke Lombard version bunion has disappeared, and I have an idea where he is. I saw a picture of him way out in the middle of nowhere a few years ago. So today I'm going to drive to, I think it's called Fernie, way down south of here, a few hours, and we are going to see if we can figure out what has happened to this guy and where he is today. So come along for the adventure. So I have arrived here in Fernie, British Columbia. Finally, I'm in the area where the 14-foot bunion was located. He started out in Lethbridge, but then he came here probably in the late 60s and stood just down a few blocks away here at OK Tire. The place is a ski shop now, so it looks nothing like it did, but I can see the spot where he was. So now it's a few miles down the road to the residence where I know he stood, and we'll see if we can meet the owners and kind of find out what the mystery behind this guy is, where he went, where he is now, and maybe we can tell his story just a little bit better.
Hi there, my name is Sandra Barrett and I'm the owner-operator of Fernie Forge, a blacksmithing shop in Hosmer, 10 minutes away from here. This is my gallery, Eye of the Needle, and it's where I sell what I make. And my husband and I moved from England in 2004. We're both qualified British blacksmiths, and he was a 5th generation blacksmith. 10 years later, we decided to buy this old Salvation Army church, and it's now my working studio where I make felt and a gallery where we sell our metalwork as well as other artisans' work. In 2008, I think it was, OK Tire in Fernie closed, and outside there was this huge Paul Bunyan figure, and he was really part of Fernie's history. He'd been there since, I don't know, about, if he was built in 1963, he was there over 40 years, and nobody wanted him. Fernie history is important to me because it's now where I live, and so we bought him as a landmark for the forge. But he was a landmark there until January 2021. And the previous month, David had got despondent. He walked into the forge one night, locked himself in, and killed himself. And then the very next month, there was a huge storm, and Paul Bunyan was hit on the back of his head. And so some friends of my daughter's came round and took him down, and I put him safely in the shop for a while because it was winter and there was snow on the ground. And then eventually I moved him around to the back of the shop. And there he stayed until one day Joe Baker turned up and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, where's Paul Bunyan? I know he was here."
Can't believe this is actually happening after Monday's adventures down in Fernie. Here we are on Wednesday, driving back with a truck to pick up the 15 foot Bunyan that was once in Lethbridge and now resides in Hosmer, I think it's pronounced, just north of Fernie. And this guy's going to get a full restoration. Excited to get down the road here today and actually pull the Muffler Man out for the first time and get a good look at it before we put it on the truck.
I realized that Paul Bunyan could be restored because he was broken, both as a result of the storm and, as I later found out, because he didn't have an original head. Well, there was a story in Fernie that the grads one year had stolen his head from OK Tire, and it was found in an attic later and returned, but it turns out it wasn't the original head that was returned, so that remains a mystery. And I don't know if his head is going to remain in Fernie and go into a museum, or whether I will keep it, or whether Joel will take it as part of his intrinsic history. But we're all learning more about Paul Bunyan as we go.
So now it's Wednesday. That was Monday that I came up and met Sandra and got the whole story on the history of the Fernie or Hosmer Muffler Man, the 14-footer. You know, interestingly, I went back and I realized that in 2015 I actually posted on Roadside America about this guy, and I mentioned Sandra and David's name in the post, which was really interesting because I barely even remember doing that now. But I kind of gave an update, and at that point in time, he was still standing right out here by the road. Sandra's friends brought him to the back here after a winter storm damaged his head. And you know, his head was non-standard, so what happened is the weight of that head actually crushed his chest over time. The international fiberglass neck area was not designed to support a heavy head. It was designed to support the international fiberglass 14-foot head that came with it. So that's really why why it caved in and did such damage. And then of course they brought him back here, and by that time I think he just came completely apart. So he's been stored back behind the forge here in pieces. So we've got most of the upper section here, about mid-torso is where it broke off from, and then the feet are pretty good. I'm gonna have to dig out there where he was by the trees here after I get him loaded and see if we can find bits of his right boot there. I'm missing the toe and everything, so we're gonna see if we can find it, unless I find it back in here. The rest of him is stuffed back up in here. You can see his arms and stuff. So I guess I'll get to work seeing if I can pull him out and lay him out here before we put him in the truck. Looks like I'm going to need to move his torso, his arms first, and then get the rest of them. Got the International Fiberglass, Venice, California, right there on his leg. I always love it when those are still on. Sometimes people sanded them off over the years. So when they did repainting and restoration, they would sand them off. But he's still got his. Yeah, I always like to lay things out and do a little bit of assessment if I can. And then I get to think about something all the way home, how I'm going to fix this thing. So I'm looking at the pieces here, and I'm pretty confident I have all of them except the boot. The cracks line up really good on the torso and the pants, and then it's missing this big section here, which is his chest right here. And then I've got a couple other little pieces, so he's all here. I just got to find the boot now and get him in the truck. The torso is somewhat still together, but it's just about to rip completely apart. So I want to kind of keep it together if I can. That way when I restore it, most of the cracks are lined up already correctly and I can fiberglass it rather than using clamps and piecing it together with very little reference. So I'm going to try to keep this torso together as I load it in the truck. So I've pulled the truck out a bit and parked it here. The Giant's in it. This is where he used to stand, right here on this big tree right here. He had a rope around his waist, and then he also had a what looks like a metal platform down in there. And I'm hoping we find the rest of his boot, because I really could use that in the restoration. So the next job ahead of me is to move this big pile of wood out of here.
I feel confident now that I can go back in the forge and I make things, and now I'm starting to make things, not just forge work, but a forged armature with galvanized steel, and then I felt over it, and it really helped me to go back into that space which was so traumatic, and to relight the fire and continue blacksmithing, because that's what I do.
That was a job moving all that wood, but I found it. This is what it's all about for me. This is my passion. I just love being able to research, find old pictures, and then after, sometimes it's years before I can get to where these guys are, but then to go in, look for them, find them, and then ultimately to have what happened here in Fernie, British Columbia, and that's obtain them and be able to restore them. Really big thanks to Sandra for telling me her story, for taking a lot of time out of 2 different work days for her to talk to me and discuss the Giant, for being willing to sell him to us so that he can go on to have another life, get restored.
I hope that Paul Bunyan will have a future with Joel and American Giants, and he's going to move to the United States, and hopefully he will find a new home one day when he's been restored in time to a museum on Route 66. And so his legacy will continue. So thank you for listening, and good luck, Paul Bunyan.
Sandra told me I could choose to take the head or leave it, and I've decided to leave it. This head is unique to Fernie and his history here, and I hope maybe the museum here can take him to help tell a part of this story. It's been a few weeks, maybe months, since I was up in Fernie and met Sandra, and I've brought the bunion home. Restoration has started in its infancy stage. I've got the arms out and all the old metal out of them. As I think back on this story and I've had some time to reflect, when I started this, Muffler Men were all about the giants. And the more I researched and the more people I met, it really became also and more about the people. And you're Don?
Don.
All right.
Yep.
The people behind the giants. Bill Swan, who made the first one, and Bob Pruitt, who envisioned it, and Steve Dashew and his family at International Fiberglass. The countless people after that, the buyers and the purchasers and the businessmen who got these giants. And there's so many stories about people, and this one is no different. And the more I talked to Sandra, the more I realized this is about Sandra and David. This is about maybe giving back a little bit to someone who's lost so much. She's been through so much. I'm so proud of her and how strong she is, to have a stranger like me come up to her door and just open up and tell me her story and how it was connected to this Paul Bunyan behind me. And hopefully one day show her, what's been done in the restoration that's happened in honor of David and in memory of David is very rewarding for me, and I hope it brings some joy to her and so many others that this bunion has affected over the years. I've rescued so many Muffler Men. We've restored many Muffler Men at this point. This one is special. This one really hit a chord with me, the story behind it. And it's also going to be the first one that I do all myself. Big thank you to Sandra. Please visit her, Eye of the Needle, Fernie, British Columbia. Go say hi.